Joining us now, great to welcome to the program today any beer lovers out there are going to enjoy this book. It's called The Beer Handbook, Living a Life Ruled by Beer. We're joined today by Patrick Dawson on the telephone. And Patrick, good to talk with you. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing very well. Thanks so much for having me on.
I have to say, I don't know a lot about beer. I couldn't drink it because I was allergic to some of the ingredients in it as a kid, so I never really got into beer. But it's you got it all covered in this book.
Yeah, absolutely. I am sorry to hear that. Hopefully, you found maybe a beer or two that works with you, because it's a wonderful time to be a beer drinker right now.
There's so many types. I do know that. With the microbrewing, I guess that's still pretty popular. Different areas have their own microbrews. Is that still what's going on out there?
Yeah. In fact, I just heard from the Brewers Association that there are now more breweries in America than there ever have been before, since the inception. And while that may sound like, well, of course, there's more and more people. It was only just a year ago, there was more breweries before Prohibition came about than there were in the U.S. So I think, like, right now we've got 4,100, something like that. Well, before Prohibition, we had about 4,000. So we just passed that mark of how many breweries there were before Prohibition, which is really saying something, about America's love for beer and, how much they're willing to support a lot of these new local breweries and microbreweries that are coming about.
I worked at one time, a long time ago, at Busch Gardens, where they, of course, had used to have the free beer tour. You get samples and stuff. I guess they're not owned by Anheuser-Busch anymore, but that was a very popular part of Busch Gardens for a long time. The free beer samples.
Yeah, I have no doubt of that.
What makes now you talk about the local microbreweries and the different types of beer. I know there's different types of ale and the dark beer, light beer, all that kind of thing. Is it the taste that's different? Is it the brewing that's different? You wouldn't think there'd be that many different varieties in taste, but I guess there are, right?
Yeah, I mean, there really are. It's pretty amazing. For the longest time, there was sort of like little style guidelines that brewers followed. This Pilsner is supposed to taste a certain way, and a porter is supposed to taste a certain way. But with this latest brewing movement that's happened, this new school of breweries have just sort of thrown the rule book out and are just making every sort of beer imaginable. And using all sorts of different ingredients. You're seeing lots of beers that have aged on, in fruit or maybe different spices. It's just fantastic. It's just all the flavors that you can find in beer nowadays are just so different than even just a few years ago, 10 years ago. A lot of the preconceived notions that people have about beer and how it's supposed to taste don't apply exactly anymore.
I've seen recently, in the last few years, you have lime-flavored beer. I never thought that would be a combination that would go together, but I guess people like it, right? Lime juice and beer, is that right?
Yeah. Citrus in beer it's pretty popular. I mean, just because that citrusy flavor, a lot of people drink beer on a hot day when they're looking to sort of quench their thirst and have that satisfying sort of acidity. So, be it adding citrus to the beer, or there's a lot of hop varietals out there that take on sort of citrusy flavors, almost like a grapefruit and tangerine. They're becoming more and more popular. So that's definitely something that people have shown with their pocketbooks that they're enjoying.
Well, let's talk about you a little bit and the book. I guess you consider yourself the beer geek. How did you become the beer geek?
Well, I think I'm one of many beer geeks, but for me it all started in college. I started brewing my own beer. I started home brewing, and I'll be honest, I was really only interested in making a very large quantity of beer for a very low amount of money. But over time, I really got to enjoy what I was creating, and really started analyzing and appreciating it, because you put a lot of effort into it when you make it, and that just sort of started me down the path of my interest in beer, and one thing led to another, and here I am writing about it.
Is beer difficult to brew? I've seen, you can have the home kits and all that, but you sort of have to know what you're doing, right? It's a chemistry involved in brewing beer properly, right?
Yeah, it's not too difficult. There's a couple different methods that you can follow, and some are easier than others. The easier ones, you might be a little bit limited in what all you're able to create. But it's not too difficult. It really helps if you know someone that's brewed a couple times before. It's just a fun social thing to get together and to brew a batch of beer. And after you brew a batch with someone, it's pretty easy to do it again yourself. I would definitely encourage anybody that's got an interest to get out there and do it, because it's a good time, and it's a great way to learn a lot more about beer.
I thought it was interesting you talk about in the book, never drink beer from a frosted glass. Is that a no-no?
Yeah. Well, that's, for me, I don't like drinking beer out of a frosted glass, because if you drink a beer that's really, really cold, it numbs your palate. It numbs all the taste receptors on your tongue. And there's a lot of flavors that you're not going to be able to pick up. So, you're sort of, brought up thinking, you want to drink your beer as cold as possible. You pull it straight from the fridge and you pour it into that frosted mug. But really, if you're drinking a real flavorful beer, like let's say an IPA you really like, or something like that, you're not going to be able to get that whole flavor profile if you drink it too cold. So I definitely recommend, don't, pull the frosted mugs out of the freezer, and even next time you pull beer out of the fridge, let it sit out for 5 or 10 minutes before you open it up, and you might find that there's a few flavors in there that you didn't pick up the time before.
Yeah, not too cold, but not freezing cold, but cold enough. I guess that's the rule of thumb, right?
Right.
Is Germany still considered the best beer country? I mean, you mentioned all the breweries we have in the United States, or have we taken over that title?
Well, I'm sure a lot of Germans would probably disagree with me, but I wholeheartedly believe that U.S. is the best beer country in the world, because and that wasn't true just a few years ago, but we have just sort of taken the world by storm, just with the amount of breweries and the type of beers we're making. It's just so progressive, and the culture has just sort of popped up and grown around it. I mean, you never have to look far to be able to try like a good craft beer. It used to be kind of difficult to find these things, but now every restaurant, every bar has a good, decent selection. So yeah, I really think the U.S. is the front runner anymore. But Germany and Belgium and all those other places are right there too.
Well, it's a fun book to read through. You got some great illustrations too in the book. I think Greg Kletzel he did the drawing, so it's kind of a funny book, but a helpful book as well for any fan of beer. Even if you're not a fan, you might become one. It's called the Beer Geek Handbook: Living a Life Ruled by Beer, and we've been talking with Patrick Dawson today. Patrick, do you have a website you want to direct people to?
Yeah, you can check out my website, pdawson.com. I'm on Facebook and all the social media as well, if you'd like to learn a little bit more about the book.
Great. Patrick, pleasure talking to you. Good luck again with the book, and thanks for joining us today. Hopefully we can talk again.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me on. It was a pleasure.
I'm Stan Brock. 30 years ago, I formed Remote Area Medical to help people overseas. But then we found generations of families in America, isolated by poverty from the health care they need. Together, we can take dental, vision, and medical help to 1 million adults and their kids, right here at home in the United States of America.
If you'd like to order the book we're talking about, please go to DougMilesMedia.com and enter the author's name in the Amazon search box. Thank you for listening. Please come back soon for more conversations here at DougMilesMedia.com. This has been a presentation of Doug Miles Media, all rights reserved. You can listen to or download previous programs at iTunes, Stitcher.com, or Doug Miles Media.